And he talked about what's the purpose of using a commentary. I think you have this on the board here. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and get out the page I gave you yesterday on the uphold commentary. Those 2 pages? I think it was 2, right? Yes. Get out those 2 pages. And we're going to go over that today. Because here's the thing. When we first started together, I argued for a step-by-step method by which you interpret Psalm or any poetic text. And you remember I told you that the first thing you're going to do when you sit down with a particular passage, the first thing you're going to do is define the what? Define the what? Type. Remember that? Y'all forgot already? Second thing you're going to do is discern the. Very, very good. And y'all have done that on Psalm 123. By the way, what is the type? What type of psalm is Psalm 123? Very, very good. Okay? Now, after you define the type, after you discern the structure, right? By the way, how many strophes do we say is in Psalm 123? Two. What verses are they? What's the first strophe? Verses what? 1 and 2. And another one is verse 3. So after you define the type, after you discern the structure, the third thing you're going to do is what? Wow, look at her over here. Describe the occasion, right? Do we have an occasion for Psalm 123?
No, it is Psalm of Ascent.
All we know is that there's a Psalm of Ascent. Y'all will let her beat y'all up, brothers? Y'all will let her answer all the questions? We know that it's a Psalm of Ascent. Who's the author of Psalm 123? We don't know, right? So not ascribed to any authorship. So what we've done is we defined the type, right? A lament. We've discerned the structure and discovered that verses 1 and 2 is a strophe, verses 3 and 4 is a strophe. Then we describe the occasion, if there is one. One thing we know is that it is a song of ascent, right? But then, after the fourth step is now we got to decide on the
observation.
Yeah, questions, observation. Now we have 2 different types of observation. The first kind of observation is what? Now that's a method by how we go about asking questions or deciding on the questions. But what is the first one? Somebody said over here. I think you said interrogative. Very, very good. We're asking questions. Now, what kind of questions do we ask? Yeah, 5 W's and the H. And then we shift and we move from asking questions, the interrogative, to the what? The indicative. We make statements, right? And I think what we did in that process of asking statements and having research questions and finding comparison and finding contrast, right? We did all of that. Now, we then asked those questions and made those indicative statements. We move now from observation to interpretation, right? And we talked about some resources that I think would be helpful to you. And we talked about these commentaries that are going to be helpful. Now, the reason we ask so many questions is because we want to make sure that we sort of engage the text very well. And we talked about let's go back to observation. We talked about there's two things that can sort of help us in what we're looking for when we're looking for observations. One thing we will see in any passage of scripture is what we call routine terms. Routine terms, right? Those terms that don't need any explanation, right? So we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about the, and talking about and, or talking about but. Those are routine terms, right? Okay. And one of my students, one of my friends, I was trying to teach him about Bible interpretation. But the problem is that he got so caught up in routine terms, he totally missed the idea of the text. One time I was discussing with him, and he got caught up in a personal pronoun called his, H-I-S, right? He said, I just want to find out what the meaning of his is. You see? So the problem is, brother, he got caught up into he got caught up in the routine terms. But what I want you to focus on particularly are the routine terms, the non-routine terms, the things that you probably won't understand, right, without further explanation. So one way we do that is when we're using commentaries to find out the arguments and find out what needs clearing up, clarifying, and find out that maybe some things that disagree with what we believe. Now, what I want you to do is get your papers out and let's look at some questions. And I got some extra commentaries up here that I'm going to help you with, that I'm going to show you on the screen. And let's see if any of those questions can be answered through the commentary. Y'all ready? Open up your Bibles to Psalm 123. Now, what I want to do is, let's look at the heading, okay? Let's look at the heading. What does it say in the heading? A song of ascent. What does that mean? How many know what that means? Anybody?
Song of journey.
A journey, right?
Yes. Telugu it is translated as song of journey.
A song of journey, right? Okay. Now look at this. There's a commentary by the guy by the name of A.W.H. Billinger. And look what he says about an ascent. The people of ancient Israel went on pilgrimage to the temple to worship. And these are the songs they sang as they traveled to express their faith. As the community sings its faith, it also comes to embrace the faith at a deeper level. Right? So now what I'm going to do is, as I'm studying that, this is going to give me some information about what? The song of what? The song of what? What is this telling me? It's a song of what? Ascent, right?
Yes.
Okay? So they're on a pilgrimage where?
To Jerusalem.
Yeah, to the temple to what?
Worship.
Worship. Okay? Now look, one of the collections of the Psalms that clearly embodies this approach is Psalms of Ascent, Psalms 120 to 134. Okay? So 120 to 134, those collection of psalms are songs of ascent. Now, what's the song of ascent? Why? How was it used in Jerusalem? How was it used in Israel?
So on the way journey
A song of journey. Journey where?
to Jerusalem.
To Jerusalem. Just going to Jerusalem?
Temple. No, temple worship.
Yes. So this is not in the context of what?
Worship.
Worship. Right? They're not going to Jerusalem just to chill out. Right? They're not going to Jerusalem just to have lunch at their favorite restaurant. Right? They're going to Jerusalem to worship. Now you notice that this psalm, according to Billinger, is a psalm that is in a collection of other psalms. Now, what psalms are the psalms of ascent? 120 to what?
134.
134. You see? Okay? Now look what it says. This is going to give us some background information, right? One of the first 4 psalms in the collection, see that? Suggest a journey. Pastor talked about a journey from where? Afar. And a context of
Distress.
Now look what happens. How did we classify or categorize this psalm? It's a psalm of
Exact.
lament.
Lament.
It's a psalm of lament. Now, according to this commentary, is he saying this is a psalm of lament? Distress, right? Right? So now we know that this is in the context of distress for the pilgrimage of the pilgrim what?
Community.
Okay? Look what it says. They anticipate arriving at the temple on Mount Zion. In the meantime, the community looks to God for a help along the way. Now, what's interesting about this? The community what? Let me ask you this. In our study on Psalm 123, does that make you think of something?
Yes.
What does it make you think of?
Us.
The us?
Us.
Yeah. Eyes, you said?
I, us.
Yeah. What else does it make you think of? Just knowing Psalm 1 through 3, what we read, what we dissected, what we've structured, questions that we've asked. When you hear this, the community looks to God. What about Psalm 23? Then ought to say,
Looks to God for help.
Yeah. Now, what about Psalm 23? How we connect that to Psalm 123? Does it remind you of anything?
Yes, distress.
No, looks to God. What does that remind you of?
Yeah.
As servant.
What's it? Yes, the maid servants. What are the maid servants doing?
Looking to the
Master.
Thank you. What are the servants doing?
Looking to the hands.
What does verse 1 say in Psalm 123?
I lift up my
Is that looking? That lift up my eyes. Is that a metaphor?
Yes.
Seeking something, right? So when he says look to God, it's okay. That may answer some of the questions. Okay? Now let's look at this guy by the name of J. Clinton McCann. He suggests that book 5, verse 10, Psalm 107 to 150, responds to the theological crisis. Okay? And they need help law that persisted from ancient Israel even after the return of the exile. Okay? Okay. So now you're going to say, no, I don't know if I agree with that or whatever. Right? Okay? Now look what it says. Someone read this for me. Can y'all read this okay? Can y'all see this? Someone start reading right here.
While not limited to this particular setting, Psalm 123 fits it well. It is a community lament psalm.
Stop right there. What type do we say this psalm was?
It's a community.
Yeah. So we were right. We were correct.
Yes.
You see? So we knew it was a lament. Now many of you said it is a lament of the community because you observe that we. Now you remember when we first started talking about lament, a lament can take on two types. One is the individual and one is the
Community.
very, very good. Okay? Now look what it says. Someone read right here. Start reading right here. Likely.
Likely the psalm could have been used in an ancient worship setting in which the community expressed its trust in God and pleaded for divine help.
Is that going to be important as far as insights? Yes or no?
Yes.
Of course it is. It's an ancient worship setting. And what are they doing? They're doing two things. Number one, they're expressing their
Trust in God.
and their.
Pleaded for divine.
Does it seem like that is going on in 123? Okay. Now look how, ladies and gentlemen, Bellinger has divided his psalm. How did he divide it?
Confession of trust in God.
Yeah, structurally. How did he divide it?
Into two strophes.
Two strophes.
Yes. What are they?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
3 and 4.
Yeah. So now he breaks it down into two ideas. The first strophe,
Confession of trust.
confession of trust in God. The second strophe is,
Subsequent complaint and petition.
now let's say that we don't agree.
We don't agree.
Let's just say that. Is that okay? Is it okay to disagree with that?
It's okay. Sir, I'm getting doubt when you asked.
I'm just using what we call hypothetically. Let's say, well, I don't know if that is true in verse 3 and 4. I believe that is true in verse 1 and 2, but I have a disagreement in verse 3 and 4. Is that okay?
Please explain why that is different.
Yeah. If I say, well, I don't know if this is true. He says it's a subsequent complaint and petition. Let's just say, I'm not saying he is wrong, but I'm saying let's just suppose that we disagree. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yes.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, is this the only commentary we're going to read?
No.
Right? Now, let's see how many of y'all have the commentary that you have on the page. Y'all open that up. And let's see if he agrees. I think it's going to be 8. Oh, okay, y'all.
8:78.
Thank you so much.
879.
Okay. Now, here's one thing we have that they agree upon. Both Bellinger and Leopold, they both agree upon the structure. Right? They both say it's verse 1 and 2 and verse 3 and 4. But look at the top of page 879.
An expression of complete submission to God.
Okay? Okay, now is he says a complete expression of complete, right? And look at B on 880, an earnest plea for help from contemptuous treatment, right? Now they may be saying the same thing. You see me? They may be saying the same thing, right?
Yes.
But what I want you to do is I want you to compare and contrast different commentaries. Okay? So now let's do this. So let's Bellinger. Let's see if we have another commentary. Let's look at David Guzik. Look what he says. Look what he says. He has it. He has it. Same structure. Look. A, verses 1 and 2. B, verses 3 and 4. Okay? Look what he says about a song of ascent. It said this, someone read this.
Somebody read. This is another in the sense of
This is
song
another
sung by
in
a
the series of songs sung by
on their way to Jerusalem at first time.
Stop right there. Now,
Feast time. Sorry.
very good. Now let me ask you this. Does Leopold or Bellinger, what's the difference? So you gotta look at this. When it comes to their description of the Psalm of Ascent, does Guzik in this commentary give you information that may not be in Bellinger or Leopold?
Yes.
Very good. Who said that? What did he say different? Well, they both say it's a pilgrimage or it's a journey, right? But this says a little bit something else, doesn't it?
Feast
What's
time.
that?
Feast time.
Feast time.
Ah, it's feast time. Question is, what does that mean?
Passover.
We don't know.
Some festival it indicates
Some
that.
festival.
Yeah, some kind of festival. We know it's about worship, but now they may ask up other questions. What kind of feast time is he talking about? Is he talking about the feast of unleavened bread? Right? And question is this. How often did a Jew, what festivals did they go to at Jerusalem?
yearly ones.
Huh?
3 times.
3 times.
Passover.
How many times a year do they go?
3 times.
What's the first time they went? I mean, what are the 3 times?
Passover time. Feast of Passover. Then Feast Tabernacle. No.
You know, you're right. Some call it the Feast of Booths.
Booze, yes.
Same thing, tabernacle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different way you word it. And what's the third way? I mean, there's 2 that's really combined.
The Tabernacle, Pentecost.
Feast of the first fruit, right?
First one, yes.
Okay? But we know that they went to the festival at different times. The question is, when did they use this Psalm of Ascent? Okay? Now, so look, that is a serious psalm that at feast time is going to be very important. Okay? These psalms give us a pattern of preparation to meet with God and his people, his community. Now look what he starts getting into the text. Unto you I will lift up my eyes. The psalmist declares his intention and action to lift up his eyes to the Lord. This means
That he is
All his circumstances, all self. But also,
Ah.
yes.
Now, keep in mind, now when you see something like that, for the preacher, right? You need to make sure that you can bring out this idea. Right? Okay? This means, if I want to explain this means that what? Now we're going to talk about how you're going to ultimately explain that, right? And you're going to make application of this, right? But you're going to turn it from the psalmist put his eyes on God rather than on his circumstances. See that?
Yes.
But here's the thing. When we get to exposition of this, we're still in exegesis now. We're going to turn that into a past tense statement to a present tense statement. Because the reality is people don't come to church to hear a word that's back in the past. So what you do is you turn it to a present tense statement, right? Whatever you're going through in life, I would encourage you to do like this psalmist did. Take your eyes off your circumstances and keep your eyes on the Lord. In other words, stop looking at what you're going through and look unto the Lord. To make it homiletically interesting, you'll say, stop looking at what's going on around you and look at who is above you. Y'all see that? I will look unto what now? Where did I get that idea of looking above me instead of around me? Where did I get that idea from the text?
The Lord.
The situation.
Yeah, but what in the text particularly? Does I say look up? Y'all look at the Bible. And it's not going to be on the screen. It's probably going to be in your text. Right? Look at verse 1. What does verse 1 say? Stop right there. Where is heaven?
Place.
The place of God.
Now, if you're looking, where would you look? If I say look up to heaven, if I say look at heaven, what would you do?
Look into
You would look up.
Yes.
Right? Right, David?
Yes.
You would look up. So now when I say don't look what's going on around you, look at who is above you. Because he's enthroned in the heavens. You see? So you see how I make this and I'm going to use this, right? And make it applicable. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now look what he says. All ye who's enthroned in heaven. See that? Look what Guzik says. Earth may have no mercy or help, but heaven has an abundant supply. Now, I don't know if that happens here in India, but in America, there's some people on earth that will not have mercy on you. Does it happen in America, in India? Yes. Right? Some people have no grace. Yes. Isn't it interesting that those of us who have been shown the most mercy are the same ones that give out very little mercy? Isn't that interesting? Wasn't that the problem with Peter in the Gospel of Matthew? Jesus is talking about forgiving your brother. And here's what he says. He says, let me give you a process and a procedure for forgiveness. He said, here's what you do. You go to that brother by yourself, talk to him about the situation. He said, and if he repents, you've won your brother. He says, but if he doesn't listen to you, take with you 2 or 3, for out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. He said, but if he does not listen to you, tell it to the church. Right? If he does not listen to the church, right? Treat him, right, as a tax collector. Then Jesus says, and so whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. I say unto you, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there will I be in the midst. And he concludes his conference on forgiveness. Now watch the Bible, because Peter comes up to him, and Peter wants to have, after this conference on forgiveness, wants to have a question and answer session. And he comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 3 times? 7 times, right? He said, no, not up to 7 times, 70. Y'all remember that? 70 times 7. Now watch this, listen very carefully. And then Jesus told a parable unto him. And the whole parable is about forgiveness. Y'all remember the parable? Where Jesus tells a story about one owed so much money, all these talents, right? And he forgave that man of that large debt. And the same one that was forgiven all of that debt went to a fellow brother who owed him a few days' wages. But he didn't forgive him, didn't show him any mercy. The Bible says he choked him. He said, pay me what you owe me. And he threw him in a debtor's prison. Well, the king found out about it and called that man and said, I forgave you all that debt, and you couldn't forgive this man that owed you a little bit of debt. And he takes that man and puts him in prison. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that whole parable is directed at Peter's attitude toward mercy. Peter had received so much mercy, so much grace, right? He literally becomes a disgrace to grace. Because even though he had received so much mercy, he was unable to extend mercy. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, mercy oftentimes cannot be found on earth. Sometimes it's a limited supply. The psalmist understood that, so what does he do? Does he look to man for mercy? No. He looks up to the one that's enthroned in the heavens. You see? So what you do is, you able to make that applicable, okay? Now look what it says. As the eyes of servants look to the hand of the masters. Look what it says. Someone read this.
The idea is like a water or a buff.
Waiter or a
The idea is like a waiter or a butler standing behind the master, seated at the dinner. The servant looks to the hand of the masters for the slightest indication of need or want to instantly meet the need. With that same intensity, devotion, and steadfastness, the psalmist looks to God.
That's what got one of our questions, right? Now that helps explain it, doesn't it? It gives us information. So as you're going through these commentaries, look at these commentaries, okay? And that's going to give you information about how to explain some things, okay? Until he has mercy upon us. Then it says, this is how long the psalmist will focus his attention towards the Lord. He does not demand an immediate answer. Right? Let me ask you this. Someone read this. That first phrase.
He does not demand an immediate answer, but will proceed patiently until the Lord extends his mercy.
So what is this idea? What is this idea talking about? Let me give just an idea.
It's not about demanding, but it's about patiently waiting upon.
Okay. Now, what I want you to do is sort of throw that as you prepare on how to effectively communicate that. I want you to sort of, we call it, roll it over in your mind. Right? If I said, okay, I want you to summarize that part B, this in 2 words. Tell me what you would say. How can you summarize that? Give me an idea, summary, in basic, without all these words. Just give me a summary in a couple of words of what this is talking about.
It's patience.
Yes, B.
Be patience.
Wait patiently.
Waiting patiently. Right? Now, here's the thing that I want you to think about. Right? Let's take that patiently. Patiently waiting. Let's flesh that out a little bit. Let me ask you a question, and you be honest with me. Do you ever have a problem with waiting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. It's a great punishment.
Now, let me ask you this. What is it about waiting that's tough? I said, why is it hard to wait?
Because we are anxious.
Anxious. What else is it about waiting? Right? Why is it hard to wait?
Sometimes we believe that was the right time to receive something.
Say it again.
Sometimes that was the right time to receive.
Have you ever had to wait on someone?
Yes.
Right? Have you ever got frustrated?
Yeah.
Yes.
Many times.
Yeah. Huh?
Most of the time.
So waiting can be frustrating. Yes. Right? What is about waiting? Anything else?
Losing that hope.
Is that?
Losing our hope.
Especially you have to wait a long time. Right? Now, before you had cell phones, right? Before you had texting, How did it feel to wait on someone? Before somebody can send you a text message and say, I'm 5 minutes away. Or somebody can call you and say, I'm on my way, I'm running a little bit late. That's a little bit different. What if you're waiting on somebody and they never give you what we call an estimated time of arrival? You get comforted, don't you? When someone says, I'll be there in 5 minutes. What if you don't ever get that? Let me ask you this. What if you're waiting on somebody and you call them and they don't pick up? You're ready to go. You're waiting on them. You call them and say, where are you? You know, they don't even pick up. You text them. They don't respond. How would you feel?
Getting angry.
Get me angry. Right? But not only does this text say that he waits, but it says how he waits. Patiently.
Eagerly.
Because here's the thing. There are some times we wait, but many of us, to be honest, don't wait very patiently.
Eagerly.
Right? I remember one time when I was a kid, before we had cell phones, before we had any kind of social media, I was waiting on my cousins to come to my house and play. They had told us earlier that week, said, we'll be over your house Saturday. They didn't tell us what time or anything. So I got ready. Me and my brother got our clothes on, and we're waiting on my cousins to come play. So you know what we did? We waited. We couldn't call them because all they had was a home phone but no cell phone. We waited, and we waited. We checked our watches, our clocks, and said, where are they? They said they were going to come. Every time a car drove by our street, we look out the window, see it was there. That was very frustrating. Right? And that's how waiting can be.
Sometimes we'll get accustomed to that way.
Now, this happens with people, doesn't it? Don't you get anxious? Don't you get frustrated with the person that you're waiting on? Right? Don't you start losing hope? Maybe they're not coming. Isn't it frustrating that they don't seem to answer when you pick up? When you call, when you text, when you try to communicate with them? Right? Now let me ask you a question. This happens among us, but how many will be honest with me today? That this also happens with God. If you ever call on God and sometimes it seems like he doesn't pick up when you need him, you say, God, at least send me a text message or a sign that you heard me. At least respond. At least tell me that you're going to take care of it. Right? But you hear nothing from God. Let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like you're ignored by God?
Yes. Very nice.
Right? You remember the story in, I think it's Matthew chapter 15. The Bible says there's a woman a Canaanite woman. She's traveling the coast from Tyre and Sidon. And she comes to where Jesus was, and she's yelling at the top of her lungs. And here's what she says. He said, Jesus, son of David, have mercy upon me. My daughter is vexed with the devil. And then you hear these words. And Jesus did not answer her. Jesus ignores her. Then she yells out even more, Jesus, have mercy upon me. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. And then the Bible says that the disciples said, Jesus, send her away, for she cries after us. And the more she hollered, the more Jesus was silent. And then he tells her this, after he does respond to her, he says, I did not come for you. You're a Canaanite woman. You're not the right race. You don't have the right face. And you're not from the right place. He said, I didn't come for you. I only come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Did that stop her from pursuing Jesus? No. She asked again. And it seemed like, David, Jesus insults her. He said, lady, he said, it's not right to take the children's bread and give it to a dog. Wow. Now that would have stopped many of us in our tracks. We would have turned and went home. But you know what she does? She says this, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat from the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And then Jesus had her where he wanted her. He said, oh woman, great is your faith. The Bible says, and her daughter was healed from that very hour. You know what God is trying to do in times of our waiting? Try to build faith in us. Trying to build trust in you. So how do you work? How do you wait patiently? Now, what I did was, I took this idea of patiently waiting, and I just sort of talked it through. See that? Times when I had to wait, as an illustration. And as we talked about this, because the psalm is a psalm of emotion, right? And God doesn't mind you being real, right? The problem sometimes in churches is that we're sort of what we call fake. You know what I mean? We always have to seem like everything is together. We always have to feel like, you know, I'm supposed to be spiritual all the time. Nothing's going to bother me. When God says wait, I have no problem waiting. I just trust in him. I know he's going to move. For the rest of us, it's not super spiritual. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes we need encouragement. Like from this song, right? I was talking to Dr. Allman yesterday. And I was telling him, I said, man, I'm frustrated. I said, I wonder what God is really going to do with me. I said, I spent all this time getting a PhD, and I wonder if it's really doing me any good. I can't make any money, right? I know you call me to teach and preach, but maybe I just miss God. Maybe this is what I want to do rather than what God wants me to do, right? So I just wish God would at least tell me what's ahead so I can sort of plan. But God keeps me in the dark. I wish I could see will have a crystal ball or something that I can see 2 or 3 years ahead, and I say, okay, I know God's going to come through for me in 2 years. I can wait then because I know He's coming. I know He's going to act. But it's tough when you say, I don't know what God's doing, and I don't know when He's going to do it. I just have to trust Him until He does. You see? So what you do is, if you have a song that has a lot of emotion, you want to make sure that you dig into that emotion. And look what it says in here. He said that he does not ask for an immediate answer. Now, we tend to do that sometimes, don't we? God, I want you to answer me. I got to do something by 3 o'clock. I need to answer by 2. Right? I need something done next month. So you need to answer me right now. Right? And God just sits back. But this psalmist says he doesn't demand an immediate answer. Right? He's going to wait until the Lord extends to him mercy. You see? So now what you do is you're going to compare these. Now remember, we had a couple of words that we need to understand. Right? Let's see if we can go to that goes. Let's go to here. Now, I'll tell you about Bible.org. Bible.org, you'll probably go to that already. But this is another commentary that can be helpful. Now, here's the thing about Psalm 23. Now, look at the different versions. New American Standard, New King James, New Revised Standard Version, NJB. Look at the titles it gives them. Okay, prayer for the Lord's help, prayer from relief from contempt, pray for deliverance from enemies, a pray for mercy, or pray in distress. Right? Now look what it's done. It's besides this prayer in distress, what it's done is, each one of them have the same strophes that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, except we get to this one. Right? Okay. Or they call it paragraphs.
Stanzas.
Yeah. Okay. Now, some of you call them paragraphs. I call them strophes because I think that's more consistent with the type of poetic. Right. They're not necessarily paragraphs. They're going to 2 verses. Right. So they be more of a strophe, be more strophe. Right. Now, her thing. That he that dwells in the what? Now, I can click on that. And it'll give you references to heavens. These are a special topic if you want to study about heaven. Let's say that is one of the non-routine words that I want to study. I can go to this and I can click on that and they give me information about it. Okay? Now we also talk about the word hand. Okay? The word hand, this is BDD, Brown, Driver, and Briggs. A special topic on the hand. Okay? So now let's go to this idea of hand. Would you believe that the word hand is mentioned metaphorically about 160 times in the Bible? Did y'all know that? Okay. Just in Ezekiel, it talks about the hand, right? The word hand, 388, right? In the thing, we're looking it up. Has several connotations and uses. Literally, right, it means this, but anthropomorphically of deity, right? He uses hands. But let me go to we're going to go to look at While that pulls up, let's go to, then we talked about the Lord God. When we talked about that, there was a thing we want to talk about, we want to focus on. How many know about the different names of God? Right? Elohim, right? Okay. Now here's the thing, I'll let you click on that and get to the names of God. Elohim, El Elyon, Yahweh. This is the name which reflects deity as a covenant-making God. God is Savior, Redeemer. Humans break covenants, but God is loyal to His promise, His covenant. Okay? So mention that stuff. Now I can use that to help me get some study. Okay? Let's go to, now Dr. Allman has what we call the Logos. This is what they call Bible works. Behold. Interesting. Anybody know how to read Hebrew? See the word, y'all see this word? Y'all know what that word is? The Lord our God. What's the word? Can y'all see that? So the Lord is Yahweh, Jehovah. What do you know about Jehovah? Covenant keeping God. Right? Now, let me ask you this. We notice that the Lord is in the text, right? That's a covenant keeping God. Can that have any impact on our waiting? What if he was a covenant breaking God? So what I want you to make those parallels, make those connections, right? Okay? So now what I want you to do, let's see do we have any other words? Oh, that word contempt, right? Let's do a word study on that word contempt. For we are, what does it say? We are contempt. Look what it says. Become a right? That's a sort of a connotation. In Genesis chapter 38, it says, we're tired, and let's make it practical. Y'all know what a laughing stock is? That's probably sort of an American idiom. What does it mean to be a laughing stock?
Everybody will look at us and laugh at us.
Yeah.
They mock at us.
Yeah. So now, these children of Israel, let's say we're going to use that idea of a laughing stock, right? You will say, Lord, I'm tired of people. I'm tired of being the laughing stock of the community. When are you going to come through? I'm tired of people laughing at us, especially in your context with the Hindus and the Muslims and people that don't have any kind of religion. They may make a mockery of you as a believer. This can happen on your job, in your community, right? When they pass bills and government passes bills about Christians, right? You see on television, YouTube, man, you people, you Christians, I'm tired of you Christians. What you believe doesn't even make sense. You believe in talking snakes. Yeah. You believe in talking snakes.
Yeah, at the time of Eve.
Yeah. That's so foolish. You believe a donkey talks.
Yes. Bala.
You believe God stopped the sun. That's scientifically impossible. You think God opened up a Red Sea.
Yes.
You believe God opened up a Jordan River.
Virgin can conceive
You believe that a man was born
without
from a virgin. That's ridiculous. That doesn't happen. You think there's a resurrection? Nobody's resurrected. He probably is good, reasonable, rational explanation for that. He wasn't dead in the beginning. He just revived himself in the tomb and got strong and was able to get out. He was walking around somewhere. He probably died. His bones are somewhere. And you believe he went up into the sky? See how you can be a laughing stock? That's what they're dealing with in Psalm 123. Right? So you have to really communicate that, right? When you're teaching it. Now let me ask you this. This cannot just be for teaching, it can only be for your own personal life. Right? When you feel on your job you're the laughing stock. If you work around a lot of Hindus, non-Christians, Muslims, they may think you're laughing. You believe in 3 gods. Right? You believe in the Trinity? The reason we don't believe that is because that's 3 gods. You're saying Jesus is God, you're saying God is God, and you're saying the Holy Spirit is God. That's 3 gods. How can you believe something ridiculous like that? How can that happen? Explain that to me, please. And then you become a laughing stock. That's in your own personal life. You never preach this text. Right? Stuff now. Scientists are coming out and say there really was no Moses. There's no reference to Moses in any of the Egyptian literature. You said that the men peoples came out of Egypt. There's no proof of that. There's no such person as Moses. He's never, in any of the accounts, there's no such thing as people coming out of the land of Egypt. Can you imagine what it did to the economy of Egypt and you have no references for that? Your book is a bundle of blunders. Book of lies. How can you believe a book like that? You become a laughing stock, my friend. Right? And the psalmist says, Lord, we're tired of it. We need your mercy. And we'll wait on it until you come through. You see? Now you see how you make that very practical and plain? It's not just for everybody else. Sometimes God does that just for you. You see? What time do you have? It's not 4 o'clock. Any questions about commentaries?
You say something. Still continue your message.
See, now what you have to do is you have to ask the Lord sort of help you sort of flesh that out.
We are so
Because
tired, Lord.
God does it just for us, this waiting part.
Yeah. You said what now? I didn't hear you say. The waiting part?
మళ్ళీ ఒకసారి చెప్పండి.
కాదు అది కంటిన్యూ చేయమంటున్నా.
So what you gotta do is you gotta put yourself in the text. Don't look at it as that's for somebody else. How can I communicate this to somebody else? The first thing is how does it impact me? And here's what you do. We'll get into this tomorrow. Because how does it impact me? Because I guarantee you, the way it impacts you is the same way it's going to impact the person you're talking to. You see? Because just like you get frustrated in waiting, just like you get tired of the proud and the arrogant, you get tired of being scorned and shamed, right? They feel that way the same way too. So you think is okay. As I look at these commentaries, I'm saying this person waits patiently on the Lord, like David just said, wait patiently on the Lord. And I'm going to sit there and think, what does it mean to wait? How do I feel about waiting? How do I feel when I waited on somebody and they never come? You see? So you think through stuff like that. How does it feel if I was a laughing stock? Why would a person laugh at something? So you start thinking like that, right? Oh, by the way, we got to look at this word mercy. Someone read verse 4 for me.
We have had our fill of scoffing of the proud and the contempt of the arrogant.
Okay?
That's in the beginning of the third verse.
Was that?
Third mercy.
Yes.
The beginning of the third verse.
It's to show favor.
Have mercy on us.
Okay? Mercy is to show favor. Right?
Otherwise, patiently waiting. Can we correlate with other passage?
Yes. Yes. You may say,
Elijah, King James, Book of James,
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, what you can do is you can do some cross-referencing, right? Now look, some versions say mercy. New American Standard says grace, Khammam, compassion, pity, favor, graciously, right? Now, I have the software where I can find all things this comes under this grace, right? Gracious, right? I can use those as cross references right? Now you can do that, but I wanna caution you a little bit. You always remember that the context always determines what? Meaning. Meaning is always determined by what? Context. So what you want to try to do is not just find everything that says grace or mercy. You want to make sure that they're using it in the same kind of way. So when we did the psalm thing, now what I'll do is I'll probably limit, so I won't be going all over the place, I'll probably limit this idea of grace, right, in the psalm. I may look at, now let me ask you this. Someone tell me what section of the Psalter, the entire book of Psalms, are the songs of ascent.
122.
This is one of them. But look at that commentary. Where are the songs of ascent? I think it was the first one we did. I don't think I got it.
122, 127. Ascent Psalms ఎక్కడి నుంచి ఎక్కడ అవుతున్నాయి?
122, 134. 122, 134.
122 to what?
134.
Okay. So now I'll go back here. If I want to do some study, I may want to look at, is 120 to what?
134.
Okay. I will look and see if there's any use of that word outside of within those other psalms of ascent. You see? Okay? Now, what time do we have? About 4 o'clock, is it?
What's it, our class?
No, we got time for tea, is it?
More 30 minutes.
Huh?
More 30 minutes.
Now what is the time?
Still up 320.
Okay.
3:20.
Still we have
345.
Okay. Now,
345.
here's what I want you to do. Now we're going through these commentaries, right? We have in our text verses 1 and 2. Then verses 3 and 4.
Excuse me, Dr. Fuller,
Yes.
is it completed? Is it finished that waiting part?
Meditation.
Yeah, now while we are teaching or while we are experiencing the waiting time, do we need to say the how to wait on the Lord?
You can do that because in the text it says, it's talking about waiting patiently, right?
Do we need to say them the different types of waitings? How to wait on the Lord?
That can be helpful. A lot of times it's going to depend on two things. Number one, are you preaching it? And number two, are you in a teaching setting?
For our personal
Yeah,
education.
well, now that's good. That's up to you, right?
Can you please tell us some waiting, how to wait on Lord?
Well, let's look at it.
Waiting
Let's do some
times.
let's do some let's take the frog.
Again.
Remember we talked that? Let's take the frog, and instead of me telling you how to wait, let's see if we can find out how to wait as we sort of think through it together. Right? Let's just simply talk about this idea of waiting. Right?
Suggest some.
Yeah. So now, what are some ways that I can wait?
Like farmer waits for the.
That's for Timothy, right? She used an illustration as a farmer waits, right, for the produce, right? That's First Timothy chapter 2. And James, I think.
5:7.
Okay? Now we know that is a simile, which means that we have to go to horticulture. Right? We have to go to farming, gardening. Right? Let's sort of flesh that out. Has anybody ever planted something? How many ever planted something? Right? That's the kind of, you gotta think about that. So that's the illustration that he uses. How does a farmer wait on the yield of his crop?
Till the time ends.
Huh?
Till the time ends.
He goes through time,
Yes.
right? We're gonna have to take some time. Now let me ask you this. What's the last thing you planted before? Does anybody plant anything by seed?
By seed.
With seeds. They plant anything with seeds?
Yes.
Okay? So let's say you planted it on Tuesday. Right? Let's say you planted a seed on Tuesday. Do you go out on Wednesday and look for it? Man, let's see if it's sprouted yet.
No.
Then Thursday, you say, let me go see if it's sprouted yet. Then Friday, let me see if it's sprouted yet. I hadn't done anything, man, I'm getting frustrated. That's a different kind of waiting, right?
Pouring more water sometimes
Yeah, you got to put more water in, right?
so that it will sprout out.
Yeah. So waiting for a farmer, right, is waiting, but it's different than other kinds of waiting, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you got to get in, okay, how does a farmer wait? Now let me ask you this.
No, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
At the time of waiting, we cannot concentrate in the word and will not get the words to praise God.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm asking those questions. And we wanted to weep and cry, whatever situation it occurs. But how to overcome all these things
Oh.
at the time of waiting period?
How to overcome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, here's what we do when we deal with this text. A farmer waits in a certain kind of way. Now, let me ask you, who y'all who have planted something before? By seed? I mean, now, let me ask you this. When you planted something, did you just plant it and say, good luck?
No.
You planted with what?
With hope.
Ah,
Expectations.
exactly. So now here's how you deal with the time of sorrow. You have to wait with some sense of expectation. You see? If you're just waiting, like, well, I don't believe God's going to do anything.
The sister's question is better answered in Psalm 27, last 2 verses.
Okay, read that for me.
I would have lost heart unless I had believed
Yes.
that I would see the goodness of the Lord in
Ah,
the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart.
very good.
Wait, I say, on the Lord.
Well, so number one, we're going to wait with expectation. Psalm 127 tells us wait not only with expectation, he says, I want you to wait with courage.
And at that time also we need to take the help of God.
Yes.
We seek the help from God. must
We must remember our
Yes.
past benefits.
Yes,
We
sir.
should
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Now, let me ask you this.
And we need to.
Have you ever had a job where you guys are career minded, so you probably can go and come as you please? But have you ever had a job where you had to start at a certain time and end at a certain time? Like start at 8 o'clock and end at 5 o'clock. Have you ever had a job like that? Right? Now let's suppose you get, let's say after lunch, you go from lunch from 12 to 12:30. You get off at 5. Let's suppose business is slow, right? You're really not busy. And you're sitting there, nothing to do. You're not working. And you look at the clock. Man, it's 12:45. Got nothing to do. Man, I'm ready to get to work. You look up, 12:47. You say, man, let me try to go to the feet better. Then you look up, man, it's now 1 o'clock, I got 4 hours to go. Right? You look at the clock again, man, it's just now 1:30. You're like, man, this is taking a long time. You ever feel like that?
Yeah.
But let's suppose you go to lunch and you come back after lunch, right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff you're doing. So you're just doing, you're typing away, you're doing this, you're looking at, you're doing research, you finally get you some coffee, some tea, whatever, you take a little tea break, you do this, then all of a sudden you look up, bam, it's 5 o'clock, it's time to go. Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah.
Right? What's the difference between those kinds of waiting?
When we were busy, we could not find that hard time.
What's that?
We could not feel that space.
Yeah. So now let me ask this, because we're gonna be now. What was the difference of my first waiting when I looked at the clock every 5 minutes, and the waiting when I was real busy? Did somehow God make the time go faster?
No.
Time is still time, chronologically, right? But what's the difference?
We were immersed in that work.
Yeah, we were involved in the work. In other words, the reason it took so long sometimes is because I kept my eyes on the clock instead of getting busy doing the work. So how do you wait? Not only do you work with expectation, you also work while you wait. You see? Get busy. Right? Not just sitting and watching. You get involved in the working. You see things? Okay? So you see how we do that? Now what we've done is we sort of flesh that out, and you just start thinking, how does a farmer wait? How have I had to wait? Right? So you look at those tiles of application. We're going to talk about that when we get into exposition. Okay? Any other questions about that? Okay? Now, here's what we're going to do. Here's the hard part. Y'all ready? We're going to have to find what we call the main idea. The main idea. Okay? Now we have 4 verses, 1 through 4. Now what we're going to do is we're moving this is now starting to look like a sermon. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to find what you call the exegetical, what? Idea. Now here's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be past tense statement. Now, what this passage say we're going to do in one sentence is going to give a summary of the entire verses, right? A summary, right? So you're going to say something like this: the psalmist. Then we're going to complete the sentence, right? Now, here's the thing. We're going to flesh this out. We're going to do some hard work. You with me so far? This is going to be extremely difficult. Right? So what we got to do is all the stuff that we study, we got to somehow make one sentence that summarizes the whole thing. Right? Now, what is the main, let's start like this. What is the main idea, right, in a couple of words or less? Not finished. Let's see, what is he talking about?
Mercy.
Mercy. Okay? Now, when I want to introduce you, write this down somewhere on your paper. Here's how we're going to help us find this main idea. Write this down. Number one, we're going to find the subject. Subject. Write that down, please. Subject. Then, keep that word mercy. Then we're going to find the complement, and I'll tell you what these are. Someone say subject. Someone say complement. Those are two things we're going to find. Well, what are those, Dr. Fuller? Glad you asked. The first one is, subject is, what is the passage about? What is the passage about? Now wait a minute. Subject is what is it about? Now wait a minute. Complement is, let me complicate it. What is it saying about? It's going to be complicated. I can't translate it into your language. What is it saying about the subject? Okay. Subject is, what is this passage about? Now, if I was in English, I said, what is it saying about what it's talking about? Here's what I say in English. What is it talking about? Subject. What is it saying about what it's talking about? Now, I have a hard time trying to communicate that last week in Bazag. So what I'm saying is, this is the subject. What is it saying about the subject?
Explanation of the subject.
Okay. Now, what is this? What is Psalm 123? What is it talking about?
Mercy.
Mercy. That's the subject. What is the subject?
Mercy.
Now the complement is, what does it say? What is the text saying about mercy?
Waiting patiently.
Okay, so we got so far, right? Now we're gonna have to work with this to maybe sort of define it a little bit more. Subject is, what is it talking about? What?
Mercy.
Mercy. What's it saying about mercy? Waiting patiently on mercy, right? But we have to somehow bring in this idea that's in verse 4. What's the idea in verse 4?
Extend mercy up to
What's the idea in verse 4? Read it for me, please.
Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorn of those who are at ease, with the contempt of the proud.
We got to somehow bring that out. So, waiting for mercy, but is there anything else we need to include as we make this? Right?
We have more than enough of small difficulty, we can say,
Okay, or difficulty or scorn, right?
or content.
Or at the time of ridicule.
Okay, let's do this. The psalmist seeks mercy, right, or looks for mercy in the times of contempt. From who?
From the other hills.
Let's say from others, right? Now I'm going to explain that. Now here's the thing.
Here it is with an arrogant and with
Okay, arrogant and prideful.
Did you want to pass things, David?
Yes. Okay, good. So now let's do this.
These
Looked for mercy. Thank you. So we have, let's see if we can make this, let's see if we can clean it up a little bit. Okay. Now, do we need to add anything else? Psalmist look for mercy when
times of
The time of
hello, Paul.
Hopeless condition.
Testing, one, two.
Hopeless situation.
Better than that already. Thank you, brother. So the psalmist looked for mercy. How can we make this? How can we make that? What do you think? How can we word it a little bit differently? Or is there anything else we need to add? Who said that?
mercy and payment.
Say it.
In distressed conditions or situations.
Okay. Good. Anything else we need to add? Now he brought that out because of the commentary. They use the word distressed.
In hopeless situations.
Okay? Or hopeless situations. Anything else we need to add? Are we missing something? Are we missing something? The psalmist looked for mercy in distress, or look for mercy in this hopeless situation. Are we missing anything? What's wrong with that sentence? It's according to Psalm 123.
show mercy unto the Lord.
Ah, thank you. We missed that. Now, tell me what were you thinking? Because you saw that in the text, right? Why is that important?
Yes.
It's important, right? You know what she said? The psalmist look to the Lord for mercy. Right? Why is that important?
He is the one who gives the mercy.
Okay? How do I know that according to the text?
He's our only hope.
Huh?
He's our only hope.
Okay? But how did I prove that in the text? I know that.
Okay.
Verse,
But remember, this is text driven.
verse
So
2
yeah,
says,
covenant keep.
verse 2 says, as the slave repels the master repels the master.
Okay?
One alone in heaven is God himself.
Man, look at you.
Yeah, well.
Because when we said in heaven, there is an abundance of grace and mercy. You see? What does verse 1 say? Look at someone read verse 1 for me.
Unto you I lift up my eyes, O you who dwell in the heavens.
Ah. Who dwell
In the heavens.
in the heavens, right? See that? So now, let's do it. The psalmist looked to the Lord for mercy in times of distress. Y'all write that down, because it's going to be very, very important. Make sure you write that down. Write that down, please. Write that down, please. The psalmist looked to the Lord for mercy at times of his distress. In times of distress. Okay, y'all got that?
Yeah.
Now, the reason that's going to be important, ladies and gentlemen, is because you know what this is going to ultimately be? You know what this is going to ultimately be? This is going to be the main idea of your sermon. Let me tell you a little bit about exposition. Exposition is a study, a historical, grammatical study of a passage in its context, right? That's centered on a main idea. We'll get to that after we get back to people. It's centered on a main idea. So we did all this stuff, not just because we had nothing else to do. We did all this stuff to discern the main idea, and we have it, right? Now here's what we're going to do when we come back from break. We're going to take the main ideas in verse 1 and 2 and the main idea in verse 3 and 4. And those are going to be our 2 points of the teaching. Y'all with me?
Yes.
So, now why do I only have 2 points, 2 main points of this sermon, of this teaching?
Text too strong.
Yes! The text has 2 points.
Text driven.
You see? That's why we discern the structure early in the beginning. Y'all with me? Because the sermon has to take the same shape of the text. Y'all with me? By the way, how many points should a sermon have? It depends on the text. So if the text has 3 strophes, how many or 3 major ideas?
Maybe three.
Yes. What if it has 5?
5.
What if it only has 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends upon the person.
Yeah. That's why we spent that time discerning the structure. Y'all thought I'd just give y'all something to do to keep you busy. Right? I wasn't doing that just to keep you busy. I was doing it because I was going somewhere with it, right? So now, that's going to shape your sermon. 2 strophes, 2 ideas. Based on this idea of how the psalmist looked for mercy from God in the time of his distress. Now here's what we're going to do. Now, when we get, that's going to be our big idea. But when we come back, we're going to change it from a past tense statement to a present tense statement. And we're going to remove the psalmist and put believers. And sometimes if we're studying it for ourselves, we may put I need to look to God for mercy in my times of distress. See?
Times of hopelessness.
Yes. Was that? Yeah. Yes, and we're going to show you how to change that. Now you see how it's starting to look like a sermon?
Yeah, he's the Lord.
So now we're going to develop our 2 points, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 things with that text. Number 1, each point we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to explain. Number 2, we're going to illustrate. And number 3, we're going to apply. Each point. Explanation, illustration, application. You see? And you're going to do those 3 things to each one of those points. And we're going to talk about that. We'll come back after tea. Okay? Y'all are doing so well. Y'all are getting it down, huh? No. Y'all are getting it down.